in if they point guns at us. We've got something like 140 speakers. We've got over 80 sessions. It is a packed 3-day program. Make your choices, book your seats, and really enjoy the next few days. My welcome comes on behalf of the university, Wits University, which is celebrating its 100th year. So it's a big and wonderful year for the university, as it marks its centenary. The Center for Journalism, the Wits Center for Journalism, is our host. Many of you will have known it in the past as the Journalism Department. It's also come of age into the Center for Journalism, and we'll talk about it more tonight and later. When you want to register to study, give us a shout. I also have a whole bunch of partners and supporters and sponsors that I need to just mention. As you've seen from the list up there, it is a long list, but let me go through it quickly and hope I don't leave anyone out. Open Society Foundation, Gates Foundation, Code for Africa, CEDA, Civicus. You will have seen APSA. I think they're winning the branding war so far. Scoop, the Norwegian Investigative Journalism Agency. The MacArthur Foundation from the Nigerian-based arm of it. Very pleased to have them here. The Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, good old friends, and Deutsche Welle, also who've been at many of our conferences. Other partners, of course, we're part of the Global Investigative Journalism Network, and they've worked hard with us on this. With us is the Pulitzer Center, who you will see and hear from during the week, and the Rory Peck Center from London. Center for Investigative Journalism, in particular their environmental unit at the moment. FOJO, MDIF, that's the Media Development and Innovation Fund. Have I got that right, Bridget? Investment Fund. Investment. It's a good word. GTOC, the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Our old friends, the Africa Check Reporting Project, also from Wits. Arena Publishers, Mail and Guardian newspaper. CPJ, the Committee for the Protection of Journalists, who've partnered for the Carlos Cardoso event on Tuesday evening. Yellowwoods, who sponsored, you'll be happy to hear, the wine. Media Hack Collective. So a great group of sponsors without whom we wouldn't be here today. Sponsors, partners, people who work with us in and out, and we're very pleased to have them. So I think you know, this is 3 days with lots of training, so there's a lot of new skills to be learnt. I think some real cutting-edge, exciting training to expand our skills base. It's a chance to showcase great work, great African work, and hopefully cast aside those notions that there isn't good and interesting journalism happening in all corners of the continent. We're here to show that off, to share that, and we're here to build collaboration. We're here to build and encourage collaboration. We all know that journalism these days is teamwork, is cross-border work very often, and a lot of that happens from this conference. We can think of a number of good initiatives, which you'll see over the next 3 days, which started with people meeting at this conference, and we're very, very proud of that. We have put in place a lot of opportunities for networking. That's apart from the coffee stand outside. We have evenings dedicated to networking. We have networking sessions, and let me just tell you about them for a minute. There are specific sessions today and Wednesday, which are labeled networking sessions. Anyone can call a networking session. So we've got, for example, a gathering of the Francophone journalists. We've got specific interest groups that have called. They are in the program because they came before we started. But if you want to call a network meeting, you tell me, providing it's a reasonable request. We will tell people, we will allocate you a room, tell people, and that session is yours to do with it as you wish, to encourage that kind of interaction. Okay, quite a lot of housekeeping to get through, I'm afraid. Please download the app if you haven't. There are a few people who haven't. The Wova app, which you can link to from our site. It really is essential. It's got the program. It is how we will communicate with you if there are changes to the program. So please keep an eye on it. I've talked about the networking session. There is a flash session, networking sessions. There is a flash session in which you get 5 minutes to talk about a great story you're planning that you want people to join with you. If you've got a new tool that you want to share or a great idea, tell me. I will schedule for the flash session. On it, depending on how many there are, we'll give you 5 to 10 minutes to tell your story. Okay, so please let me know if you want to do something in the flash session, which is on Wednesday at 1:45. Translation. We are translating into French. If you need the headphones, please signal and they will be brought to you. Okay. There are 2 channels. One is in English, one is in French. So make sure you get the channel you need. When you are finished, please make sure you either hand over the headphones or just leave it on the table. Please, if you leave with them, we run into a problem of the cost and the fact that we then run short later in the conference. So please, please, please leave those headphones behind. All the plenary sessions and translations are in this room. So the sessions that will be translated will be in this room. Okay. Everything else, unfortunately, is English only. That's all we could manage. The other rooms are on the first floor mostly, and you will find them quite easily. And the maths lab for training is not far away, but it is signposted. Or just ask some of those people in red T-shirts who are there to guide and help and assist you. Bathrooms are a bit that way and a bit that way. No problem. I will tell you of a problem in advance, that from Tuesday night, there is no water. There is no water. The city has told us they're cutting off water on Tuesday night. But don't panic. There's beer and wine. No. Don't panic. We're bringing in lots of water, potable, for cooking, for everything we need. And they are bringing in what they called executive portable toilets. So I hope they're good. But I'm sorry about that disruption. If there are power cuts, a generator should kick in immediately, so the disruption should be minimal. Okay, what else do I need to tell you? Connectivity. If you're not on, the password, it's the AIJC. The AIJC network, and the password is CAPS AIJC-2022. CAPS AIJC-2022. Please join the network. Let me introduce you to the man who calls himself the drawing monkey. His name is Roy. He has one of the longer titles in this room. He is a live, interactive, digital sketch maker. So in this room, he will be doing live sketches of people, capturing the discussions. They will be put up on our website so you can see them or download copies of them from there. He's there to enliven things when you need a distraction from the incredibly interesting speakers. And at the end of the conference, we will ask you to fill in a survey form. We will send you a link to a survey form. I ask you now, please fill it in. Please fill it in. One person who fills it in, pulled from a hat, so you don't have to give good or nice answers. One person pulled from a hat will have a ticket, all expenses paid, to come next year. Okay. So if you want a guaranteed seat for next year, when I say all expenses, flights, accommodation, conference fees, not your laundry. Okay. So please fill it in, be in for that draw. You will also vote for your favorite speaker. Favorite speaker will get a drawing by Roy of themselves or of something relating to the conference. So vote well, vote carefully, vote once. Okay, so I think I've covered all the housekeeping. You will hear more from us tonight at the networking session because we want to get going this morning straight into the conference. One last thing. I introduced Shireen. I'm Anton, the people in red. We're all here to make you comfortable, to help you deal with whatever issues there are. I know some people did have travel and accommodation issues, and I apologize for that. If you have any complaints, ask for Joshua. I have no idea who Joshua is, but I'm sure he will help you. Okay, we're here to help you to sort out your issues and problems. To run this first session, I'm going to call on the Acting Director of the Wits Center for Journalism, my colleague Dinesh Balya, to introduce our speakers and to take it from there. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful 3 days.
Morning, everyone. Can I get a better morning than that? Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know so many of you have traveled from afar. You've had a rough night. There's water, load shedding, etc., still to come. So it's a long week ahead of us. But we're going to have some great discussions. I just want to say, on top of what Anton has just said, that there are media personalities, I didn't mean to say that, media persons taking photographs, tweeting, and so on and so forth. There's also some Wits marketing people taking photographs. If you do not wish to be photographed, please let us know. We may take a picture, but we won't share it, certainly. And in terms of making sure that everyone consents, you can see that we're live streaming. Some of our computers are open and we can see them on the live stream, so just be wary of that if you don't want things unwittingly viewed online. So thank you for that. My name is Dinesh. As Anton has said, it's my responsibility this morning to introduce you to our keynote speakers. I am so pleased that we're able to showcase a project from this continent as an exemplar of the work that we all endeavor to achieve. Our two speakers join me from BBC Africa Eye. Sorry, I have to stand on tippy toes here because I think you're tall, Peter. Peter Murimi is a Kenyan journalist, documentary producer, and director. He has won multiple awards, including the CNN African Journalist of the Year Award in 2004 for his work on female genital mutilation. Peter is the development executive producer at BBC Africa Eye. Njeri Mwangi is a Kenyan investigative journalist with BBC Africa Eye. She is also the co-founder of an organization called Power 254, an organization dedicated to working with young people in pursuit of human rights. We're going to hear from the both of them. They've got something prepared, I believe, and then we'll take some questions. Hopefully, I think we have to keep to time, Anton, so we don't want to be late for the metaverse at 10:10. So we'll try and run through the session as quickly as possible and take as many questions as we can. Thank you so much.
Oh, hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm wondering, because we'll be sharing the mic, let's see if we can get this out. Oh, fantastic. And it's so nice to see you and happy to be here. And also, I guess this is the most people I've spoken to in my life. Because normally I'm called shooting or just talking to 2-3 people. So anyway, this is a first and it's an honor. So my name's Peter Murimi, and I'm from Kenya. And what we thought initially at the beginning of the talk was just give you a bit about the background so that you can know who we are, where we came from, how we got here to standing in this stage and sharing our work. So what I'd like to say first, I was born in Kenya, and that is my family, in a sense. That is me, my mom, and my dad, and I was the firstborn, so I was spoiled because my mom was really looking forward to having a child. So we're 5, but I was the one who was really spoiled. And I had a normal childhood, grew up in Kenya, primary school, very normal, very naughty, playing a lot around. But my life really changed when I got to college. And I went to Mohammed Amin Foundation, which is teaching journalism, television production. But what was really good, that's when I got the bug of being a storyteller. And when I began, this is 20 years ago, I think, the only way to be an independent journalist was to do NGO work, like this was with Helpage in Ethiopia covering a famine, or someone else would hire us for us to portray how well the wealth of built in a village is doing. So in a sense, there's a lot of progress from then to now that actually, as a young journalist, you can actually do journalism. But when I was younger, that was impossible, like 20 years ago. Like, if you're young and African, you only did development work. But that's how we honed our skills, and I started into documentary, and I ended up here. So I'll let Njeri introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure and a great honor to stand before you today. I'll go right into it. I was born, where did the slide go? That's me. I was born pretty with a lot of hair. I was not always bald, so this is just a style that has come of age. I was born in a family of 4. I'm the third born. And I grew up pretty much a normal childhood. I grew up in a Christian background, so I was the ideal model child. When growing up, there were 3 kinds of men I was to avoid for life: doctors, police, and journalists. Never marry those guys. They're busy. Their lives can be dangerous. So I tried as much as I could to avoid. I even did not take journalism, lest I met a guy and got a crush and, life progressed. Fast forward, sadly, I fell in love with a journalist. Then it was sad because I could not undo the love that I felt for this man. Fast forward even, I got married to this guy. But because I grew up in a life of, I would say, privilege, we never lacked. I did not grow up rich, but, middle income household. My husband, on the contrary, grew up very desperate. He grew up in the streets. he lacked. He ate from dumpsters. And for me, when I met him, I realized that some of the things I had seen and watched in movies, because that's how I grew up, I was watching him. And the reality of that life hit me so hard. And I realized how privileged I had actually grown up. So when we met, then I became very aware of this other side of life. And then I realized that there was so much that could be done that could help change the lives of people, give them dignity, find justice. And together we started an organization called Power 254. Now, Power works with artists who use art for social change. And it is in that space where we've worked with journalists, with activists, with artists in dance, in all forms of art that you can think of, to try and create awareness about social injustices and to try and also find justice for people that have been taken advantage of. And that's where I met Peter. Peter worked in our hub in Nairobi, and because we hosted journalists and created a lot of networks for people that came through us, I met Peter, and at the time, we did not do anything, but he worked from our space. They did some talks at our space, they did some workshops, some salons, and then fast forward, we met and started talking about something that was happening that had people, a lot of women were coming up to some, one of the people we work with, from a radio station that said that they were losing their children. And there were so many complaints about these children that were getting lost that made us wonder, how is that even possible? How do you just lose your child? Who's taking them? Where are they going? And we decided to investigate and see how deep this story went, how real this was, who is losing their children and where are they losing them from. So we got together, we listened to more of those stories and found out that it was a real problem, but we really needed to get to the bottom of it. So we'll play a clip to show you how bad what we found out.
Just for context, what you're playing now is a scene from the film that you did, and this is Jivanji Garden, and it's about a mother who's lost a child. So play the scene, and then after that we'll chat. Something is wrong. It's missing the narration, for some reason. Let me check. Yeah. Give us a second, please. 1 minute.
Sorry about that.
just restarting my machine, so bear with us. This was bound to happen, I'm sure.
As he puts up the clip, so this clip is about a woman we met in the streets. Her name was Rebecca. And when I met Rebecca, it was a cold morning. I had just left my children to sleep. It was during the holidays, in a warm bed, and Rebecca had 4 children in the streets. We spoke to several women in the streets, but Rebecca in particular had an autistic child. And she explained to us how she lost her baby was taken from her 12 years ago from the street when she was sleeping. And she was in so much pain about losing that child 12 years before. And some of the things that she said to me was such that she wished her child had died and she had buried that child instead of wondering every day where her child is, how her child is doing, if her child has eaten, if her child is well. And the purpose for this particular investigation was for women like Rebecca, because no parent should ever have to wonder where their child is. She lives in the street, and she's raised all her children in the streets. So it was very difficult for us to imagine what kind of life it was. And this particular time when I was doing this, this interview with her, it really broke my heart, because they were so cold. They moved together with other women, so we bought them tea, but I knew it was just for that moment. It was a very brief moment, and there was nothing I could do about it. And this was just one woman. We spoke to another woman who said she was selling in the city center, and she turned one way. Somebody ordered for something that she was selling. She turned, bent, and she was packing it. And then when she turned, her child was gone. And she was accused for a very long time that she sold her child. We spoke to yet another woman who said the same thing about when her child was taken away when she was sleeping in the streets. So it was very obvious, and this was in one area. We had not gone very far, it was just in one area. And they said that they lose their children all the time. People come driving by, they ask about their children, or you'll see one car come and go several times. And if you just drop your guard, then your child could go missing on you. So this for us was very, we realized that it was a serious problem, but who was taking these children was the even bigger problem. And that was hard to even imagine who it could be. So we tried to find out who these people could be. And we got a lady, one of the women in the streets called Anita. One of the women in the streets called Anita apparently was taking children from women who were either sleeping or very high on whatever it is they take, gum. And your child could go missing and she would sell them. I tried to pose as a buyer because we got an undercover agent. I tried to pose as a buyer so that she could sell the child to me. If you've watched the documentary, they're confusing me. If you've watched the documentary, you see there's a place where sorry. Oh, here. Oh. I tried to pose as a buyer in the streets, as a woman who had been trying to have a child, and my husband travels a lot, and I wanted to surprise him that when he was away, I found out I was pregnant, and I decided to keep it quiet, and then I gave birth, and here's the baby. So when I met the child, she showed me the child, and then she said I didn't have enough money. We agreed on a price. So by the time we were coming back, we had to come back with police and take the child because she was not going to let me have that child. Now that's one of the things that I think will haunt me for the rest of my life, that I did not take that child when I had that chance. But it was about getting to the core of it, because we wanted her to come with that child, and then we would nab them together, and she would tell us who was going to buy the child or who else she sells the children to. So we lost Anita, and we lost that child. Then there was another problem. There were also women who were losing children from hospital. So women would give birth. So children get lost in hospital through adoption. Adoption cases when children are not collected, not adoption, abandoned. When children are abandoned in hospital, there's a social worker who is supposed to organize how this child is going to be taken to an adoption agency or a child care facility where they can be adopted. But this was not happening. So we went to Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, which is a public hospital, and the social worker there was selling children. Of course, not all of them, but you know, we will never know how many he was selling, how fast he was selling them, but we got this one child that we managed to save, that was not sold. But that was also happening in the hospitals. Now, the other one for me was a tricky one. There's a woman who, when women come from the village and come to look for a better life in the city, this woman would find women who are desperate and want to abort, because she ran, the front was a chemist, but in the background was a clinic. And in that clinic, she helped women deliver. Now, if a child wanted to get rid of that baby, like do an abortion, she would tell them not to procure the abortion. She would help them to deliver. Then she would help them place those children into a care facility. Now, that was a problem because women willingly gave up their children, but then she sold these children at a exorbitant fee, and then gave the mothers of these children a small amount of money to take with them because they wanted to get rid of the baby in the first place.
I'm told it's working, so we'll try and play it and cross our fingers that it's working. Okay.
Judith's undercover recordings seem to confirm the Judith's undercover recordings seem to confirm the existence of a thriving black market for children in Kenya. But our investigation was soon to take an even darker turn. An estimated 60,000 children sleep on the streets of Nairobi. They too have become prime targets of the child traffickers.
Hizi ni nguo hadi na hizi ni mablanketi. Bora tu iko kubwa kabisa hivi, unaweza tu hivyo mbao moja hivi. Sasa hizi kinyeshewa itabaki tu tena tunabai zingine. Ndio tuna mali tunaweza weka.
I am approached by Rebecca. She has been homeless for years and has raised her children on the streets of Nairobi. She knows the dangers that homeless mothers face more than most.
Imagine Adina ni mchana mtu anakuja na kubebea mtoto because mimi nimeshikadi mbaba. Wewe acha mtoto wako hapa peke yake. Atujisaidie mali kama pale. Utapata ile unajisaidia na jinda chini kujisaidia kwa umeangalia mtoto. Kienda kujua mama za kujisaidia mtoto wako amedisappear. Say your real life na siku penda kwetu tukae kwa street. Waache kutuibia watoi.
Almost a decade ago, Rebecca herself fell victim to the traffickers. Her child was stolen from her as she slept and has never been seen since.
Mimi nilipotezanga mtoto 2011 March, I think date 13 stadia sawa. Sasa nani kubutuka nikapata sina mtoto. Na siwezi kuambia nani alichukua mtoto wangu na naita ngoloni sijusaya. Nikamtafuta hadi center nyingine, nimetembea hadi center sijui huku Kiambu, sijui Nkambwa, sijui Kayole. Sijipata mtoto wangu. Mtoto sisi ako na miaka 10 kesaba. Hapo sijui muone. Mujipe tu hope. Ataja tu kuja kani wangu. Wale mimi naweza tamani tu kumuona. Niridhike. Lakini alikufa ni jana alikufa. Ndio huwa mtoto kwa na mama anasafa. Hata kani na wengine. Nani alifanya nikajua mimi ni mzazi. Mbona nichukue mtoto wale na sijashindwa kumwenda kani kwa street. Alirudishia mtoto wangu na acha kutuibia watoto.
I've met 3 ladies today.
who lost their children, got snatched in the streets in their sleep, and they haven't seen them in so many years. They don't know whether they're alive or dead, but they still have hope that they'll see their children someday. I hope with them that they will find their children someday.
So like I said, this is the reason this investigation was very important. Because it was not just Rebecca, Rebecca is a representation of many other women that had lost their children in the streets. And we wanted to help find out where their children are going and who's taking these children. And hopefully, of course not with a promise, help find their children. I talked about Mary Auma. This Mary is the lady I just spoke about that was helping women deliver in the slum areas, and she'd then sell the children without their parents' knowledge, because she told them that she was giving them up for adoption, but she'd make a kill and then give the women about $30, but then she'd sell the children for over $500 and provide all the legit paperwork. Then there's Anita. Anita was a woman of the street. She's the kind of women that snatched children from the likes of Rebecca. So when her friends were asleep, she would snatch them and sell them. And there was no split, there was no explanation. She just took the children and sold them. Then there was Fred. Oh, I told you I tried to pose as a buyer. I was trying to get her to convince me that if I take this child, they will not track me down. Now, Fred was the social worker at the hospital. Maternal care is free. And Fred was able to take children that had been abandoned in hospital and put them up for sale without the hospital's knowledge. And this is a case that is currently in court.
Yeah, that's true. So we did this investigation over 1 year. And we had 3 operatives. But what I want to talk about now actually is the doorstep. And because you're running a bit late in time, I will not play the clip. Hopefully you can watch it later. But what we think is important and what we learned so much was it is really complicated, especially after we gathered all the evidence. It was time to do the right of reply. And we were going to doorstep Fred. And something that looks easy, and I think in the sequence it's 30 seconds. It took us 3 days to do it. One, first of all, we had to do really complicated scenario. Basically, what if he reacts this way? What if he tries to punch Njeri? We had factored that in. Or what if he runs away? And the problem is, we are waiting for him outside the hospital where he works. And sometimes he would use a different entrance or never come to work. So logistically, it was very complicated. And also, after the doorstep has happened, because now he will know there's this investigation, it was also very, very important to factor in the security for especially the undercover reporters who exposed him, because from that point onwards, they would be at risk. And it was so important to have a security plan for that. And so what we did for this, like, we did the different scenarios, and luckily Fred took off. He didn't try and punch us. Like when we confronted him, he ran away. But from that point onwards, we made sure like the whistleblowers basically had left town. Speaker. The whistleblowers had left out, and the thing is, which is so important, especially in investigative journalism, is to have these security plans that are 360, not just for the core team, but for actually everyone. And that's something that implemented this and is very important.
I think the people that we never see are the people that really make these stories come to life. The silent heroes, those undercover agents, because without them, they're the reason it's undercover, and they go get the details that we don't have access to. I would not go to the hospital. We had to work with somebody from the hospital who then had a camera and gave us footage about everything that was happening. We had these women who worked also with Anita in the streets and said they want to be in the business, without whom we would never have known. We would never even have seen the face of Anita. She followed Anita, and we are able to see Anita's face. We're able to have proof that she has a child that she wants to sell. So I think the thing I'm trying to say here is the silent heroes are the people who make the stories come to life and give them the evidence that can be used to bring justice to the people that have been, that need to get that justice. So maybe we need to celebrate them more and bring them, make them more visible, not in a way that they would be known, but just to know that without them, then this story would not have been done.
Sure. And then to the last point, but actually this is the most important part of the process. I'm a big fan of, I think he's around Anas, and he had this thing named Shame and Jail. And for us, it's really important, once the investigation is done, actually that is not the end, it's the beginning of another process. And for this film, the government reacted, and they did the arrest, and they approached us for the evidence. And actually, we gladly shared it with them. And we were especially, I was cross-examined in court by the prosecution, but also by the defense. Because the thing is, we were talking about trafficking, which is a very serious offense. And in one aspect, I think it is refreshing, also like important for the evidence in the film to be tested in a court of law in the highest possible standard. The defense will try to break it apart. Like that scrutiny, besides bringing validation, also shows that everything was done properly. There's no, like what you did is the truth, and also was very, very credible. And so the case is ongoing. This is the second year, but it's about to rest, and the verdict will be given. But going forward, as part of our impact plan is accountability, and accountability in court is very important to us. So we cooperate with the prosecution if they approach us. We don't shy away from it. We put our evidence on the table, and it's scrutinized at the highest standards. So this is something that is a model we're working on, and in the projects that we're involved in going forward, we let our evidence also be in court and is scrutinized. So the next, we're just going to very, very quickly, I guess it's a similar process, but the next project we work together with Njeri is called Forced to Beg. I'll let her introduce a bit. We'll talk very quickly, and then we can take some questions.
The story Forced to Beg was about children that were being trafficked from Tanzania, disabled children that were trafficked from Tanzania and brought into Kenya, into the streets to beg. So unsuspectingly, people would go to Tanzania and tell the parents about the opportunities for disabled children in Kenya, and then the parents would give their children to these people, and then they'll disconnect. And children, the main person that we followed had been away from home for 10 years. They even thought he had died. But when we were doing the story, we thought he'd been away for like 3-4 years. So we were very shocked when we went back to Tanzania and found out that he'd been gone for 10 years. So there are many children in the streets of Nairobi, and for us, they were becoming more and more and more, and we're wondering, where are these children coming from? Why is no one asking about these children? So we delved into this investigation, and this is what we came up with.
Cover to expose the cruel trade in disabled beggars between Tanzania and Kenya. We show how mothers are tricked into giving up their own children.
Unaweza tena rudi?
And reveal the true scale of this sickening trade.
Oh my goodness. 2, 3, 4. So far we've counted more than 10 that have come out of this building.
We go inside the trafficker's den to expose its darkest secrets.
and try to help young victims escape the clutches of their captors.
Oh my God.
So that's what we found out. There was buildings in some parts of Nairobi that housed these children, like 6, 7 floors, and they'd be brought down early in the morning before people started going to work and put in buses or wheeled or taken by bodabodas, motorbikes. So it was really serious, and we needed to find out why the authorities have done nothing about this. Now, for us to be able to do this, the only way actually we would have been able to do this was through collaboration. We went into Tanzania armed with a photo and a name that we did not even get right of the village where this boy stayed. And we went and showed this lady, and we told her the name. She was not sure about it. It sounded like another town, and she took us there. Tanzania has a lot of, there's hierarchical, that you can't just go to the village. You have to hierarchically go and see the leaders, then they would introduce you to the next village leaders, and then all the way to what they call Nyumba Kumi. And without that, we probably would never have found out where this young man came from. So it was very important to work with in collaboration with journalists from Tanzania, because we worked faster and we were able to get to where we were going, just armed with one photo of a boy who had not been home for over 10 years. So finding out where he lived and people who knew him all the way to his family, all the way down to his parents, that for me is everything about collaboration. Because more often than not, people can just go, you land, and you know what you want, and find your way through it, asking around, without working with the people on the ground.
Yeah, so even the two of us are here standing about these investigations, but actually on the ground, like 6 people who are behind, and they'll never be seen, never be known, or sometimes facilitating and participating. And so teamwork is at the core of this investigation, especially going to the depth that we're trying to get. And that's really important to us. And just to finish, like, this film also ended up in court. The 2 guys who were exposed, the case are going, I was in court, and that's one of the guys that we exposed for trafficking, and the cases are ongoing as well. And we are also cross-examined, and the prosecutor also used our evidence, which is very, very important for that accountability. Also, like, to have some tangible results, especially for the victims. So that is a model that we'll always use, and we like it. But also, we also get that validation of the scrutiny that the projects get at a very high level, basically in a court of law. So we'll take any questions, and apologize for the technical mishaps, but that's it for now.
Thank you so much. Hang on, I didn't even ask for questions yet. Thank you so much. I want to start with a question, if that's okay, and then I'll come to Ron and go up to France at the back. You talked about undercover operatives and undercover agents. I mean, I think that moves a little bit beyond the whistleblowers that we are used to. Tell us a little bit about how you go about establishing a relationship of trust with those individuals.
So something that we discovered, the person who's best to tell the story is someone who's very close to the story. And it is impossible for me, like for these baby stealers, for example, Anita, who was a trafficker who was living in the streets, can never open up to me on Njeri, but she can open up to someone who's like her, who they've had similar experiences. So with the investigations, like, we find, like for that film, the undercover operatives who saw what was happening with the babies, and they're really pissed off, but they didn't have the power to do it. And then when we started talking to them, and we're like, this is possible, so they became our undercover operatives, because they could intimately get close to Anita and expose her. But now what we need to do, and the advantage being Africa Eye, we could give them the best possible training. Like, we got an undercover, like someone who specializes in undercover equipment, to customize equipment for them, to train them how to use it. And also, sometimes, because in undercover, like, it's very unique situations, not one equipment fits all. So we got those resources for them to help them tell the story, but also give them the technical support, but also like moral, mental support so that they can be able to tell the story.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think it was Ron.
Yes. Good morning, and first of all, thank you for the presentation. My question involves the first film, and that is, who's ultimately behind the stealing of the babies? You seem to talk to people like, or at least point out people like Fred, the social worker, but who's ultimately behind this? Who's actually making money from this? I mean, the actual masterminds behind this.
So sadly, there's not enough research that can tell us who exactly is making this money. We know of Fred from the hospital, but even now in court, the people representing him, he has 7 lawyers. His salary, there is no way, and he has some of the best lawyers in the country. So that already tells you there is something not right, because ideally, this case should not even have taken this long. So it's hard to tell who exactly is behind. And sadly, again, because we were not able to go further deep into it, we may never really know how deep it goes. Because if Fred's case is anything to go by, and Mary Auma, who has never been arrested to date, yeah, if they were really keen on making this arrest and bringing this down, they would have gotten Mary by now. Fred would be in jail by now. But it's dragged on for so long. Mary is not reachable. She's not been found. But Mary would give you a proper birth certificate with whatever name you want. So the child would just disappear. Anita would tell you the same thing. That don't worry about the paperwork, I'll organize it for you. And she's a woman in the streets. So there's people in high office, you know, where birth registration of births is done, that make this paperwork available. But we were not able to go that deep. For me, I believe that that's how deep it goes, and those people will do anything to cover their tracks.
Thank you so much. I wonder if I could ask you to say your name and your organization. It helps with our networking efforts. I think France was next.
I'm sorry, I'm Ron Nixon from the Associated Press.
Thank you so much, Ron.
Okay,
it's
good
okay.
morning.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Kasuja Adi. I'm from New Vision, Uganda. Peter and Njeri, thank you for that blockbuster. But I want to find out, isn't it illegal to use people who are not journalists to get for you information? Why didn't Njeri do that?
I don't think it is illegal, and I think we checked, because what matters, we have an editorial policy, especially at BBC, and we go through that editorial policy, like what should and what should not be done. And to get this information, as I said, it is impossible for me and Njeri to get it. But the right person who has the right equipment and the right guidance and the right team, and to adhere to the editorial policy of BBC in this case, and it's absolutely fine, because I think it's the only way we could have got this story.
Thank you. Should we just go to Franz? He had his hand up, and then we'll come to this side.
Thanks. I'm Franz Kruger from Wits. And thanks so much for that really fascinating account. I wonder whether you could say something about how this impacted on you and on your decision to show some of your responses on screen. I thought that was a very powerful moment, but it's reasonably unusual. I'd just like to hear you on that decision to show your own responses.
I think part of the reason that makes this real is that we are able to identify with the people that we're telling their stories. These stories are important to us because they mean something deep with us. And for me, when I was doing that particular investigation, like I said, it was a very cold morning. And I tried to get the cameraman to just give me a moment, because my heart broke just to imagine what this, first that she lost her child and everything that she had said, and then to imagine that I'm leaving her in the streets in this cold. I didn't bring anything. I can't really change her life. And that's the reality of it, because you see, the story becomes even more important and more urgent. That if there is anything I can do, if this story will help improve her life, if this story will maybe bring her child back, then it becomes, it means deeper, and it's more meaningful to me as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
And just to add on to that, like, especially something we've been trying a lot, like who's the storyteller, in a sense, is very important. And also, like, the storyteller, making that connection and caring and becoming human is also important. Like, not just to the audience, but the people that we're filming and the people that share their stories with us, they have to feel that we have this bond, they're talking to other human beings. So it's nice to have that connection, and if it happens, let it be natural.
Thank you so much, Peter. So there's a hand here, and I want to go to the lady in front first. So we'll take the three, and is that all right? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Martha Kissi. I come from Côte d'Ivoire. Sorry, I want to ask my question in French.
Sure.
Okay. Merci beaucoup pour vos différentes enquêtes. Je voudrais bien revenir sur la deuxième, parce que vous avez parlé en fait de l'enquête qui peut aboutir à un interrogatoire à la justice. Alors, en termes de sécurité, comment est-ce que vous arrivez à vous protéger si jamais vous gagnez peut-être un procès parce que vous avez révélé soit un trafic de drogue ou un trafic humain? Comment est-ce que, à la suite de cela, vous arrivez à vous protéger?
I think we need a translation for that.
I got justice, thank you. Security. Can we get a translation from the back, please? From the booth. Or anyone else who could assist us. There we go. Can you pass the mic?
So she's asking about the second investigation, and she would like to know how you manage to protect yourself after you have won a prosecution or you have been in court after having released an investigation.
Thank you. I think we'll take that one and then come to the rest.
So what we do, so when you go to court, actually I'm the only one who goes to court, in a sense, to bring that protection, to protect Njeri and to protect the rest of the team. And I am, in a sense, I live half Nairobi, half in the UK. So it's very difficult to monitor my movement, and I'm careful and we take precautions. But the protection is, I'm the only one who gives evidence in court. So that everybody else is protected, especially the people who secret camera operatives. They're never ever to court. Even in the court documents, the names never appear anywhere. So we protect them that way.
So maybe I forgot to mention, I'm an activist, and I've been in this space for the last 15 years, you'd say. And we've done a lot of things in the streets, and raised our voices against, pushed against the state when they've done things. So that has put us at great risk more often than not. But the work we do is very important. So yes, it comes at a risk. I've fled the country in 2017 with my family. So when you talk of risk, when you think about what you're fighting for, and you know what you stand to gain, some risks are worth it. Because if you win, then you win. If you don't, then you've pushed, you've weakened the wall a little bit more. Eventually, those who come after you, when they hit that wall, they will break it. But it's not because they hit it, because we've been hitting it from before and we've weakened it. So I ride a motorbike to get around in the city. But I believe in my line of work, in the 15 years that I've been in activism, is being visible kind of gives you a cover. If anyone hurts you, if anyone touches you, if anyone threatens you, and you mention it, then the country rises and says, yo, what are you doing with her? What's happening? Why is she? People rise up to defend you. But if you're quiet and hidden and working solo, then they can easily target you and do whatever they want with you.
Thank you. I'm gonna just pop a question in quickly, because when you say activism in a room full of journalists, there's lots of murmurings. So to ask the obvious, how do you reconcile those two things, journalism and activism?
I feel like they're not different because it's about being an active citizen. And when you're being an active citizen, it's what you're doing about it. So if you've taken the path of journalism, then you're an activist in that space because you're trying to fight back, you're trying to push. And the stories that we tell are such that we are trying to bring down whatever, we're trying to seek for justice. And that's the same thing if I'm using art, if there's somebody who's doing poetry, if there's someone who's drawing, if there's a cartoonist. Yeah, so it's different. For me, journalism is also another form of activism.
Thank you for that. There was the lady in the scarf.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hayat. I'm from Comoros Island. And Azil, my friend. Can you translate my question, please? Ok. Oh. Je vais poser ma question en français. En fait, nous les femmes, on a tendance à absorber les émotions d'autres femmes beaucoup plus facilement. Ah oui, we translate. Go ahead.
We got the last sentence.
We got the last bit.
Ok.
Can we...
Donc, je disais que nous, les femmes, on a tendance à absorber les émotions d'autres femmes beaucoup plus facilement. On l'a vu tout à l'heure à l'écran avec toutes les larmes. Je pense que les journalistes d'investigation femmes qui ont fait des sujets dans ce cadre-là, que ce soit les violences contre les femmes, que ce soit les violences contre les enfants, ont vécu exactement la même chose. Moi, j'en ai fait un sur les violences sexuelles contre les enfants et depuis, je ne l'ai jamais relu et je refuse de le lire d'ailleurs. Donc, j'ai saturé, j'ai dit enough, j'en peux plus, j'en ai ma claque, je laisse tomber. C'est pas que j'abandonne le sujet, c'est que j'ai saturé, je n'en pouvais plus. Donc, ça fait déjà 1 an et demi que je l'ai fait et depuis, je ne l'ai jamais relu. Je refuse de le faire parce que ça m'impacte personnellement. Et on dit trop souvent qu'il faut savoir séparer la journaliste et la femme. Mais comment on fait ça en réalité quand on fait ce genre de sujet? On ne dit jamais comment, on dit juste qu'il faut le faire. Mais est-ce qu'il y a un mécanisme? Parce qu'après, quand vous rentrez chez vous, vous vous trouvez toute seule avec cette charge d'émotions que vous avez. Vous avez passé toute une journée à rencontrer des personnes qui ont énormément souffert, à rencontrer des femmes qui ont énormément perdu et qui ont beaucoup à perdre. Et là, vous vous retrouverez avec votre ordi et votre page blanche. À chaque fois que vous essayez de mettre un mot, il y a ces mots-là qui viennent vous étrangler. Il y a votre voix que vous essayez de bloquer. Il y a vos larmes, vous n'en pouvez plus. Vous criez, mais personne ne vous écoute parce que vous êtes seul devant. Donc, comment vous gérez tout ça? Merci.
Thank you. I think there are a number of English speakers who would not have understood that question. So just to summarize very quickly, it's okay. Do you want to translate? Can you do it? Super.
So,
thank you.
In a nutshell, what she is asking, she's saying that women usually tend to absorb other women's emotion more easily. And when you do some very sensitive investigations, there is an emotional charge. So how do you manage to avoid falling into that emotional trap? And how do you manage not to show those emotions? How do you go about it?
I don't try. I don't try. It's not just absorbing. You just identify with the problem. If you're a father and you see another father, you're just a father who's seen another father struggling. If you're a mother and you see another mother struggling, that's what you are. You see their pain, you imagine what it would be if that was you. You kind of just identify with it. And for me, I don't keep going with it because there's so much trouble. This world is so broken. It's continuous. So you create a community around you that you can cry, you can talk, you can laugh, you can have a drink with. Just don't overdo any of those things because then it's a rabbit hole. It will take you down. Yeah? You surround yourself with community that will support you, a supportive community. For me, that's the only way to get by. Because I've had times when I don't want to do anything whatsoever. Yeah? I even talk to a therapist. Because then, if I don't, like you said, I will stop functioning as who I really am. My passions will die. Everything I love, everything I care about will just become the problems that I see very easily. Because this world we live in is so broken. It's the things that you're seeing, that you're identifying with, is things that you're seeing on the screen. They're all over. I watch stories from everywhere. Stories that are heartbreaking. Identify with them. I don't know those people, but identify with them. So I think the solution to that is surround yourself with a supportive community. Because outside of that, and get therapy if you need to. Don't be ashamed to go talk to a therapist. They help you just unpack your emotions, give you a safe space to unpack yourself, cry if you need to, laugh carelessly, cry shamelessly, snot and all, just be.
There was a hand right at the back. I'm not sure a mic can get to you. Can you scream? Just one sec. Yeah.
Anton from Times Live Investigations. I just wanted to know your second...
Sorry, Mike, please, for the translation. Yeah, you have to do this.
Let me ask my question first. A short one. A short one.
Okay, short one.
My name is Seydina Bilal Diallo. I'm from Senegal. I'm a journalist in a newspaper named LAS. I also collaborate with a Pan-African organization named Africtivist. I ask my question in French. Je vous félicite pour vos productions. Je pense que c'est assez révolutionnaire et ça permet un peu de faire vivre le journalisme d'investigation. Par contre, j'ai une petite crainte, c'est le fait de trop mettre des scénarios, de trop miser sur les mises en scène en fait. Est-ce que le fait de trop miser sur les mises en scène ne nous éloigne pas un peu de la réalité en fait? Et puis, les omissions du journaliste, c'est un débat. Est-ce qu'il faudrait les montrer à chaque fois en fait? Donc, moi, en tant que puriste un peu, j'essaie de maîtriser mes émotions quand je réalise des productions. Nous tous, on a fait des productions sur des questions assez sensibles, sur des zones de conflit, des productions en relation avec les réfugiés, la question migratoire et tout. On rencontre des situations vraiment extraordinaires. Mais est-ce que le journaliste ne doit pas toujours être dans cette neutralité axiologique? Bon, je ne sais pas si... Donc, c'était ça ma question.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm just going to get a translation first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's worried about the too much emotion that is visible within your investigations. He's afraid that some people might think you're staging it. For example, when you're showing your emotions, crying. And the question he's asking, should journalists really show their emotions when they're interviewing or doing investigations, especially when you're doing really sensitive topics?
Thank you. Can we pass the mic to the back?
Do you want to answer them first, or?
I will take
yours.
Okay. So I'm Anton Heyman from Times Live Investigations. In the second video, at the end, it looks like you did sort of a takedown with the help of the authorities to confront this syndicate. Where do you decide that you're going to approach the authorities? How do you do that? Yeah.
So I think we'll just take 2 more questions before we end the session, if that's all right. There's a lady at the back.
Hello, I'm Maggie at ICIJ. I think I'm following up with more about questions that face journalists doing these investigations and struggle with the fact that these are women in need, they're extremely desperate. Did you struggle with like them asking you for help, you feeling like you have to find a way to help her, find her a job, give her money, support the children? This is one issue. And the second is, did you have any doubts about the story itself, that she might have sold her child and got money and got little money, and she had some regrets about it? So these questions, how do you deal with it?
Thank you. Any last question? Going once. Let's come here to the gentleman in the front.
Okay, this is closer.
Good morning. My name is Eduardo. I'm from Mozambique Media Lab. Well, as we know, one of the most difficult things in the investigative journalism is to find and make the victims of a certain situation to talk. We've been working with investigative journalism in Mozambique, and one of the most difficult things we faced was having people to trust us in order to share the information. So I would like to know that during this investigation you had, what were the strategies you used in order to get those victims to share the information with you? Apart from that, I would like to know which were the most defining challenges you had during this investigation, because as I could see, that was a very sensitive situation. Those are the questions. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll start with his question. So what is important with journalism actually is to be very, very accurate, to be very truthful. But I think sometimes as journalists, if you hide away how your emotions are impacting from you, you're also not being yourself, you're not being truthful. Because I think we're also humans, and we should not shy away from our humanity when we're storytellers. So rather than try and cover that up, cut the camera, actually we should show this is the impact it has on us. Because the point is, also, our viewers are also human beings, and sometimes words cannot communicate how emotions communicate, how our reactions communicate. So I think it's important not to shy away from the emotions, actually to embrace it more. But the point is, as you said, not to be manipulative with it, and also to be truthful of the scenario. Because sometimes there's criticism, like we can try emotionally to manipulate our audiences. But we shouldn't do that. But I think at the same time, we shouldn't shy away from emotions. So that is, I think I've answered your question. So the second one, the authorities. So actually it's really complicated, that question, when and when not to involve the authorities. But actually in both investigations, at some point we involved the authorities, but it was for the safety of the victims. Because it reached a point where we had enough information, and actually in this case, like Farah was suffering, basically he was being forced to beg, being beaten physically, and we just thought it was absolutely important to rescue him, and because we don't have the authority to, actually we told the authorities that there is someone who is in danger and in desperate need, and he needs rescuing. So that was the well-being of Farah is what triggered us to approach the police and say this is what's going on. So that's was our decision making. And also in babies, we got wind, it failed, but we got wind as a child who was stolen. And when as soon as we had that information, we had to do absolutely everything to save that child, with a film or no film, and now that child became a priority. So we told the authorities as well. So we do it for the safety of someone. So that one we didn't understand clearly. Do you mind repeating it?
The lady that asked about helping. Oh, right. I think one thing because we talked to many women about what had happened to their children, the thread was very common, and it's people who didn't know each other. So I would not have thought or even imagined that she sold her child. Those who sold, they said they sold. They came out and said, yeah, I didn't have an option, I sold my child. I didn't know what else to do. And either they felt remorse or they said, it's life. There was nothing I could have done for that child. I believe they're better off where they are because they didn't kill their children. Yeah. About helping in terms of any other way, wondering, we've seen a lot of struggle in the world, and you're just one person. And this is just one person who, for me, how I reconcile it is I found this person the way they are. I could help them with a meal today, but it will not feed them for the rest of their lives. I can't change their lives. maybe that one meal might give them strength to be able to do something that might change their lives. Maybe we might remain in touch and talk every so often. I don't go in there feeling like I'm here to change your life. Because there's a time I thought that, and I quickly realized how it broke me to realize how limited I am. And that was freeing. Just to know that you found this person the way they are, they will continue to survive the way God takes care of them, the way they've been surviving, they will continue to. And if I can do anything, I will. If there's nothing I can do, then there's nothing I can do. And to find peace in that.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to cut the session short because the boss is looming. I have so many questions and so many thoughts about this, but I think it has set the tone for the rest of the week and for the discussions we've had. And we've had a good discussion when Roy runs out of space on his page. I'll hand over to Anton. Peter and Njeri, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dinesh, and thank you, the speakers, for starting off things so strongly. Roy, if I'm correct, when you put up the thing about, there we are, you can go direct to it from that with your phone. Three quick things. Sessions will start and end on time, otherwise the day is messed up. So please be prompt in getting there. And know if you're presenting, time is strict, please. Second of all, there's some people I see without cards. Just keep in mind that if you're not registered, security will stop and ask for your card, and you won't get meals without a card. So please make sure you are registered and have your card. And finally, if you have a presentation, please come early so we can test and make sure everything is running smoothly. Thank you very much. The next session is in 10 minutes. Choose a good one. See you later.